The doors of your car will close automatically. Please keep your head and arms inside and remain seated at all times. And please, no smoking. Thank you.
Matterhorn Matt presents Matterhorn Mondays.
Episode 53 of Matterhorn Mondays. I'm your host, Matterhorn Matt.
And I'm Alex the Historian.
And today we are joined by Jeremy again. I'm sure you guys remember him from a couple podcasts we did ago. And if you watch our Commentary Land series, Jeremy is the writer for Historyland, or I guess for almost all of the channel. But mainly... What am I trying to say? Mainly Historyland. This is off to a great start. I almost forgot the intro for a second, but I remembered. But yeah.
You say that every week.
I do. I should really write the intro down on like a script or something, but we'll get to that another time.
Matterhorn Matt, unscripted.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, hello. How are you all doing? Hope you all are having an amazing day. I'm trying to talk more into my mic because I feel like most of the time I talk like pointed away from my mic, so I'm going to try my best to keep my voice talking straight into the mic. We'll see how long that'll last for. But yeah, just wanted to say please no unscripted, says Shaden. Your wish is granted. This episode is sponsored by all of the patrons all of the lovely patrons who on my Patreon page. Jeremy happens to be a patron, so big thanks to Jeremy and to everyone else who decides to donate to the channel. We really appreciate it. Let's get right into the news, says Nate. But yeah, we've got a lot of great topics for you guys today. I don't know why I feel nervous. It feels like it's been a while since we've done this. It's only been a week, right? We did do a podcast last week, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we did do... I don't know why it feels like it's been like a month since we've done this. But, yeah, let's
unless we did the time warp again.
Oh, yeah, again. Oh my goodness.
You know the song? Let's do the time warp.
Rocky Horror, yeah.
I for one have no idea what you were talking about.
Oh,
really?
My God.
No, I have no idea what that is.
Every day
It's
I learn
a
just how
cult
uncultured you are.
It's true. I am really uncultured. A lot of my friends make fun of me for it. I haven't seen. What was that movie you guys were talking about?
You're like the small town boy without a small town.
It's that is actually a really great analogy, I guess. That's a really great saying that applies to me. But you guys were talking about 2001: A Space Odyssey. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen Rocky Horror.
Well,
lots of
watch both. Not back to back, but watch both.
I have like a long list of movies and things I need to experience for the first time, like 2001: A Space Odyssey. That is at the top of my list, along with Dumbo, Bambi. I haven't seen Bambi.
I can't believe... Please stop before I just make this podcast about roasting you.
I will. Don't worry, I will. I'll stop mentioning all the things I haven't seen. But I haven't seen The Godfather either. I've seen Rocky. I don't think that counts, though. Everybody's seen Rocky, right? Maybe.
Well, everybody's seen the other stuff you've mentioned.
That's true. That's very true. Oh my goodness. Anyways, we're gonna jump right into this week's news. This week's news. I don't have a name for this. I'm so sorry, everybody. This week's news, Disney news. I don't know. First bit of news: John Williams and Michael Giacchino, I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced, are supposedly set to compose the music for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, which makes me somewhat more excited for the land, just because John Williams, sort of like a staple in the Star Wars music universe, I guess. I don't know what I'm trying to say. But yeah, very excited to have those two. I think Michael Giacchino did The Incredibles, if I'm not mistaken. He's done a bunch of other stuff, I'm sure. But yeah, very excited to see how that pans out. I think I've seen Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. I don't know why I brought that up. I'm pretty sure I've seen that, but just ignore what I just said. But there's not a lot of Disney news this past couple weeks. We only have three very short, sad bullet points to bring up today. But second piece of Disney news: Avengers 4 reshoots are set to begin. I think they've already begun. I'm sure most of you guys don't care about Avengers 4 reshoots and when they start, but I figure there's not a lot of Disney news. I might as well throw that in there. And our last bit of Disney news, sort of, I have a little a bullet point list about this next one, and all the links that I'm getting this information from are down in the description below, as always, if you guys want to read along or read them at a later date. But Walt Disney World Union approves minimum wage increases for the cast members, so that's pretty cool. The cast member minimum wage was increased to $15 with a near unanimous vote, and the new contract will raise the current $10 an hour to $11 this December, $13 in September of 2019, $14 in October of 2020, and $15 in October of 2021. And cast members will also be getting a $1,000 bonus. I'm not sure if this is all cast members, but the link to the article is in the description. Cast members will get a $1,000 bonus on September 27th. I'm going to go ahead and quote from President of the Walt Disney World Resort, George, last name I don't even want to try to pronounce. Quote,
Calogridis.
Calogridis. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
I'm not good at pronouncing things, but quote, our 50% wage increase will have a real, meaningful impact on our cast and their families. Increasing wages for cast members represents a significant investment in Central Florida and will provide a powerful boost to the local economy. So that's pretty cool news.
Can I just say something about that? Okay, so George Calogridis, who is the president of Walt Disney World, he's a really great guy. Back when I first hired him at Disney, he had just become president of Disneyland Resort. And he did the most amazing things to help cast members. I mean, because he was a cast member. I mean, what's really cool was that he started off as a busboy at one of the restaurants and moved his way up. And so he knows what it's like to be a cast member. And so it's just really cool that he was the one that spearheaded this whole thing to pay cast members at Walt Disney World more. It's only too bad that, he doesn't really have any power to pay cast members at Disneyland Resort more money.
Yeah, very sad. But it is kind of cool that Walt Disney World cast members get a pay boost. Bryce is saying in chat that I butchered Michael's last name. How did I pronounce it? He says it's pronounced Giacchino. Isn't that what I said? I think that's what I said.
No, you said Giacchino.
I said Giacchino. Oh. Okay, Giacchino. Why do these guys have such complicated last names to pronounce? Oh my goodness. I don't understand, but anyways, we got a couple topics for you guys. We're super excited to get into our second topic, but before we get into any of the topics, I just wanted to show you guys this image. As many of you guys may know, Bugs Land recently closed on the 4th of this past week, and what am I trying to say? They already have walls up all around Bugs Land, and as I'm sure you guys can guess, this is what is on the walls that are around Bugs Land. Stark Industries. So they're already teasing us for the new Marvel Land, even though Bugs Land just closed. I just felt like if you guys hadn't seen that, I might as well show that to you guys. But yeah, so this is a small little teaser that Marvel Land is still happening. Bugs Land did not die in vain, or it might have died in vain, depending on your point of view, for Mr. Tony Stark over here to build his new fortress or whatever is going to be built there. But Nate says the walls are better than the actual Bugs Land. That's a little harsh. I appreciate Bugs Land for what it was, even though it might not have been the best. They did have nice water fountains. I'll give them that. But moving on to our second topic of the day. I found this on the Disney Parks blog a couple of days ago. Link is in the description as always. Bryce is saying, "Here lies Bugs Land, gone like that. Under Iron Man's boot, they went splat." Well said. But there is new news. It's been a slow couple months, everybody, for Disney news. But I'm gonna read the title of the article: "Exciting dining enhancements coming soon to the hotels of the Disneyland Resort." As you can see from this piece of concept art for the new pool bar that's going to be built at the Grand Californian. But there's like Disney's trying to like revitalize their hotel restaurants and hotel bars or something. I don't know what's going on, but according to this article, the Tangora, I've never had to pronounce this word. I've always just read it.
Tangaroa.
This is just going to be a great stream, guys. Tangaroa Terrace at the Disneyland Hotel is set to close soon and will reopen in early 2019 as the exact same thing, just with a tropical bar and grill as the sort of tagline. I'm not going to try and pronounce that word again because I already forgot how to pronounce it.
Oh my god.
This is so pathetic.
Alex, let's go start our own channel. I think we could really beat this guy.
Yeah, I think so too.
Oh my goodness. New outdoor bar and refreshed patio serving island cocktails and Asian-inspired fare. I'm not really sure what the theme was before. I'm guessing this is just sort of like retouches and stuff. That's sort of what they said in the article. But this is really cool. A dedicated service window for various coffee selections in the morning and the popular Dole Whip throughout the day will be added. So if you guys would like to get a Dole Whip outside of the parks, I think they already sold Dole Whips at the Disneyland Hotel, one of those Tangaroa Terrace. I'm pretty sure they already sold them there, but now they're going to have a dedicated... Did they have them at... Where did they have them before?
They have them at I forget the name of it, but it's some kind of cafe right outside the doors of the lobby of the Disneyland Hotel.
Oh, okay. Well, now if you guys would like to get various coffee selections in the morning and the popular Dole Whip throughout the day, there will be a dedicated service window added. For you guys who don't want to sit down and order anything, you can just walk up to the dedicated service window, order a cup of coffee, order a Dole Whip throughout the day. Get you going. The grill will also offer options for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with an open-air marketplace for quick bites. And then, as per this concept art, guests of Disney's Grand Californian Hotel and Spa will also be able to lounge in an even more luxury poolside with, I think I played off that voice crack pretty well. An even more luxury poolside with a new pool bar opening in spring 2019. I don't think they have a name for this just yet.
There will also be live entertainment featuring Matterhorn Matt mispronouncing words and names.
Yeah, that's one thing they forgot to leave out of the article. But I will be performing live every night. But they made it a point.
Oh God.
I could go on for hours just mispronouncing everything. But they did make it a point to say that the bar will be themed to the, quote, hotel's signature arts and craft design with a natural boulder stonework and clinker bricks. I don't know why. I guess they're just trying to be specific, but that's that for the first bit of Disney news.
That's not specific.
Do you guys have any thoughts on this new refurbishment, this new pool bar opening up at the Grand Californian?
I think it's great. It's really great to have a lot more variety and stuff, because I always feel like when I go to downtown Disney and the hotels, there's a few things for me to choose from, but not much when it comes to how much I would like. So I think going to this bar and lounge right here alongside the pool, I think I would do that. They might have some good food. So,
Jeremy, anything to add?
I don't really care. Personally, I don't really like how the parks are becoming basically a retail outlet, and this is, I think, what that kind of feels like. Also, what is it? What is it? Tiki themed or arts and crafts California themed?
The one at the Grand Californian is arts and crafts themed.
Okay.
But the one that they're redoing, like none of these are actually new. They're just taking what was already there and then just revamping it. So the one at Disneyland Hotel, which is Tangaroa Terrace, they sold like some simple boxed sandwiches and things like that. But now they're gonna upgrade it to like a bar and grill and stuff like that.
Okay. I'm sure the food will be good.
Oh, you say that right after totally insulting them.
Well, I still don't care. It's. I'm sure it'll be nice. It'll be nice.
But don't you think that Disneyland Resort has always been a place to buy merchandise and eat food? I mean, like, even when they first built Disneyland Hotel, they built the Monorail Cafe. I mean,
I have fun. I have very early memories of the Monorail Cafe. But yeah, but keep in mind also, in the very early years, the Disneyland Hotel wasn't owned by Disney or managed. I forget which, but I don't know. I feel like to sustain it, but now I feel like it's their somehow selling point. I don't know. I don't know how to articulate it. I'm sure it'll be nice. I really feel very indifferent toward it. I'm sure it will be lovely to sit out there, and but that's about it.
Well, if you're not excited, there was one thing I did forget to leave out of my little note list. Whitewater Snacks at the Grand Californian Hotel will also close soon and reopen later this year with a fresh, new look. If that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will. Anyways, moving on from...
Jeremy's like, I don't care.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, like I said, not a lot of Disney news in this week's episode. But we do have a very interesting article that I'm sure we're all excited to talk about, or I guess like examine. Not really sure. We'll figure it out as we go along. But this article is linked down in the description below. The title of the article is "An Early Disneyland Designer Won Over Walt Disney with His Rebel Reputation. Now He Laments the Park Is Gone." Now this episode, or this article, is about Mr. Rolly Crump. For those of you who don't know who Rolly Crump is, Alex, would you like to explain who Mr. Rolly Crump is and why we should care about him?
How do I know who he is? I'm just kidding. Rolly Crump is actually my favorite Imagineer. He was definitely one of the most influential people in the park, right there next to Mary Blair, Mark Davis, and several other names. He designed a lot of the designs for the Enchanted Tiki Room. It's a Small World, especially my favorite, which is the tick-tock clock in front of It's a Small World. He designed that. And he was influential in the Haunted Mansion and several other things, I think, in Epcot and even, Magic Kingdom Park, of course. But yeah, he's a really great guy. But yeah, he, just like this article says, he has been known for being kind of a rebel.
Thank you, Alex, for that amazing description of Mr. Rolly Crump. And if you guys have not read this article, I would recommend just giving it like a glance over. You don't even have to read the whole thing. Just, skim it. Link is in the description. It's by the LA Times. but it gives a lot of interesting information that I wouldn't think a former Imagineer would say about Disneyland, I guess, today. But where do we even start with this? I don't know. I wrote down a couple quotes from the article, but would any of you guys like to start off this conversation, and then we'll sort of go from there?
I can do it if Jeremy doesn't have anything to say yet.
I mean, there's too many things to say about it, so I'd rather be kind of guided through a conversation anyway. So by all means, start.
But you know what? I should have been a Jungle Cruise skipper because I can guide you guys right through this thing.
Oh,
Here we go.
well, yeah. Now it's a stream. Now it's a podcast.
Oh my gosh, what a bunch of nerds. Okay. So, I don't know where to start. Okay, so
See?
so Rolly Crump believes that the park is not really up to the standard it used to be. And one of the reasons why he thinks this is because way back when, everything that Imagineers did, first of all, they did themselves. They hardly had much of a team. And basically, everybody was assigned directly by Walt to do something in particular. And so whatever it was that they did, that thing which went into the park was, as he put it, theirs, something that they did. And so, you know, for instance, in the article, he says that he thinks of It's a Small World as Mary's ride. It's Mary Blair's ride. He thinks of, you know, the Haunted Mansion as Yale Gracie's ride, you know. And so, you know, and so, yeah, so one of the things that he was just saying is just like how everybody was allowed to use their imagination and come up with their own ideas. And even though they were assigned to do specific things by Walt, there was always this great sense of well, we can present something new to Walt. And so I think that's something that Imagineering has definitely left behind years ago. Now it's just full of teams of people who all design one little thing. Like, you can have a whole team of people designing one little statue or something in a ride, and yet nothing gets accomplished at a fast enough time or rate. And so, as Rolly Crump puts it, Disneyland has lost its charm. So, what do you think about this, Jeremy? What do you think about Rolly Crump's thought process on how Disneyland has changed and why it's not really the same as it was before?
Well, first, I just want to respond to one of my favorite points in the article of him really viewing each attraction as someone's mark in a way, which I think is such a unique and totally in line with, I think, how Walt was starting to view theme park design as its own art form. And I think it's so beautiful how Rolly Crump thinks of each individual attraction as sort of an artist's piece, as if it's an art, as if Disneyland is some kind of living. I don't want to say museum, because that's kind of like a. People always say Disneyland's not a museum. Well, I Disneyland's not a museum piece, but it is a museum. It's a place to explore living, breathing pieces of art designed by specific artists. You know, I think it's totally appropriate to view Small World as a piece by Mary Blair, and Haunted Mansion. Although Haunted Mansion, I think, is more collaborative than just the illusions that Yale Gracie put into it. But I see his point. It is, those illusions are what make Haunted Mansion so special. But also Mark Davis's humor, and also Rolly Crump's surreal style. But I think that's beautiful. I think that's a totally completely idealistic view of the potential for theme parks period. And I think that is exactly what has changed in Disneyland. It's not viewed like that anymore. It's viewed by the company as a place for product promotion, brand promotion. It's viewed as a commercial, not a place of artistic enlightenment. That's the real change. And that's saddens me, as it saddens him.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely one of those places that, used to be this great, like, kind of like, as you were saying, a museum, kind of an art exhibit of just stuff that the Imagineers designed themselves. And now it's more about, oh, well, how can we create, synergy, and how can we, make stuff like the movies and stuff. So, Matt, how do you interpret this article by Rolly Crump?
Well, like I said at the beginning, I did not expect someone like Rolly Crump, like a legendary Imagineer, to sort of, I don't want to say like bag on Disneyland. It's just sort of surprising to hear someone who worked on the park, who worked on like building the park, say such, not like, I don't want to say mean things, but just, I guess I'm just going to use the word mean things because I can't think of the right word, but like mean things about the park in its current state. And I mean, I know I agree with a lot of the things he says.
Critical things.
Critical. Yeah, that's a better word. Say so many critical things about the park today. And I agree with a lot of his points. There are a lot of very interesting quotes that he said in the article about Disneyland, about the Magic Kingdom when it first opened. So yeah, this was a really interesting read for me, just because, like I said, I'd never expect someone like him to sort of, I guess, speak the truth, I guess is what I'm trying to say, to sort of speak the truth about the park in its current state.
Yeah, and I'm so glad he did. And I think he has privately. What's interesting is people like Rolly Crump and Bob Gurr. They've in their autumn years, have, I think, kind of befriended the modern Disney community. That's a very inarticulate way of what I mean. But like Leonard Kinsey and the Dark Side of Disney and that whole crew of people that believe in the same things that we all believe in about the Disney parks, and have become totally disillusioned in the most extreme way. They're very close with Rolly Crump and Bob Gurr. Bob Gurr is close with Justin Scard, who's derived from that same group of people, and Adam the Woo. These are all people who have the same outlook on what Disneyland is. And I'm so glad that Rolly Crump took a kind of a public stance on what's really going on. And he could have gone further. I mean, I don't expect him to go further. Every time I hear there's a new interview with Tony Baxter, which there is, I feel like every day, I'm always like, when are you gonna speak out? So it's just, it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, fascinating is a really good word. But there is, like, I guess, like, this quote would be like the headline quote of the article. Fall in love with Disneyland, and Disneyland can break your heart. So that's one of the main quotes from this article. Alex actually just messaged me. He said he had to leave the podcast. Something came up. So I guess it's just Jeremy and I for the rest of this episode.
I hope everything's okay.
Yeah, hopefully Alex will get back to us soon. Hopefully It's probably something with his dog, but yeah, hopefully Alex
Yeah,
is
that's what I
doing all
thought,
right.
yeah.
I could hear her barking in the background, but
Okay,
Yeah.
that's probably it.
but I did write down a couple quotes from the article, and one that sort of really struck me is when he's talking about the Magic Kingdom. Quote, "It had no feeling of Disney," Crump says of Florida's Magic Kingdom, noting it lacked the personal touch of animators trained in the hand-drawn craft. "It was a lot of good architectural pieces, but I looked at it and thought to myself, I don't think I can say this word. What the heck is going on here? Disneyland has charm. Disneyland freaking hugs you and kisses you." So that's, I guess, Raleigh's stance on the Magic Kingdom, which I didn't really see that coming. I don't know. I watched this one quote. I guess it's not really a documentary. I watched this one documentary a while back about how all these Walt Disney World bloggers came together, found their place in like the Disney community back in like the early days of like Disney blogging and podcasting and all that stuff. And they all say the same thing about how, you know, like the Magic Kingdom is like the best park in the world, all that kind of stuff. But it's sort of interesting to see someone who worked on making Disneyland. It's interesting to see his thoughts on the Magic Kingdom because, you know, Walt didn't really have hand in the design of the Magic Kingdom. It was all up to the people who, I guess, were like left behind. So yeah, it's really, really, I don't really have any words, but another one is, quote, "I helped design the rides at Disney World, but we lost the charm," he says. "You can't save someone in charge that doesn't understand the look of what Walt had. The art was done by people in animation and animation background painters. The whole thing fell apart." And then he ends that quote with, "I quit." So very, very interesting, Jeremy. What are your thoughts on those couple quotes from him?
Well, first, the Disneyland hugs and kisses you is just, I think that's the greatest analysis of that park, period. I have never been able to articulate why Disneyland is so unique and doesn't even feel like the Magic Kingdom in Florida. And he just did it. I mean, sometimes I'll be with friends who know somewhat of this or care of somewhat about this stuff. And I'll be like, I don't know why Disneyland is so unique. And they'll be like, oh, it's because, you know, it's Walt's park. And I'll be like, yeah, that's true. But I that still doesn't answer it for me. And he answered it. It's a piece of physical art that hugs and kisses you. That's its goal.
Yeah.
It just embraces you.
Alex just messaged me.
You
Said
know.
he's back. Welcome back, Alex historian, from your short break.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
We were just talking about, I don't know if you heard, but we were just talking about the quotes that Raleigh said about the Magic Kingdom, about how he said it had no feeling of Disney. What else did he say about it lacked the charm of Disneyland? What are your thoughts on those, Alex?
Yeah, I definitely feel it because when I went, who's typing? When I went to Walt Disney World a long time ago, I think back in 2006, it definitely felt different than Disneyland, and I knew it immediately. It completely lacked the charm that Disneyland had. It lacked the intimacy that Disneyland had. You know, like one of the things that was so different about it was how grandiose Magic Kingdom was. You know, and so it's just like the park over there feels very. I always used to say it was just well manicured, really like almost like manufactured. Like if
it's well made. It's well made.
Yeah, it seemed almost like every ride just kind of rolled right off the manufacturer's conveyor belt. It never felt like it was built by hand. And so that's the thing that Disneyland has. Disneyland feels like it was built by hand by the actual people that designed it. I mean, you can feel it in all the rides in the Enchanted Tiki Room and in It's a Small World, especially. I mean, a lot of people they tell me, you know, why does It's a Small World look so different from the one at Walt Disney World? And I said, well, for one thing, everything here at this It's a Small World is made with like paper mache and glitter and, you know, Elmer's glue. Whereas like everything at like It's a Small World at Walt Disney World is like, you know, it's put together with, you know, plywood and sanded down and, you know, and well painted and super glued. It's just like, it's just different, you know, and you can feel it between the parks. So I'm interested to know in what Sam McGriff has to say, actually, because he says he disagrees with, and I don't like it when people disagree with me. I'm just kidding.
So Sam, definitely type in chat what you disagree with Alex about, and we'll get to that.
Please, I'm always curious to hear dissenting views from that of our own. I agree. One of my favorite parts of the article is when he talks about how when Walt wanted the garden of the Tiki Room to be filled with, you know, Polynesian gods and myths and stuff like that, and you know, he carved those incredible statues. He had to do just that. He had to do that himself, because Blaine Gibson was the sculptor of the Imagineers. If you needed something sculpted, you went to Blaine Gibson, whether it was an animatronic figure or a tree. You went to Blaine Gibson because he was the master sculptor. That was his title, master sculptor. And so he did, and Blaine was like, I don't have time. You know, I'm working on every single project for the World's Fair. There's just no way I have time to do this. And Rolly Crump was like, well, then who's going to do it? This is what Walt wants. And he was like, you're going to do it. And so I love that part where he talks about how he used, like, what was it? A fork from the commissary at the studio.
A plastic fork, yeah.
A plastic fork to carve those incredible statues. And that you can still, I mean, it's under, you know, they're refurbishing the whole thing now, but you can still see them over 50 years later. You can see those statues. They have stood the test of pop cultural time. You know, and that's what's lacking. I think a lot of the stuff today, Pandora is beautiful. I think I've mentioned this before. Pandora is beautiful, but I don't see it standing the test of time that anything at Disneyland has. You know, there's something very manufactured about it that you were talking about, Alex. Something very kind of assembly line, manufactured, well-made, objectively well-made. Objectively, the Magic Kingdom is a beautiful park, sure. It's well-made. It's well-designed. But it lacks the personal, intimate, emotional resonance.
Yeah.
That Disneyland has, and what makes it so effective is that it's really, you can't really articulate why.
You know, I think of Disneyland as kind of like the Imagineers paper art project, you know, and then Magic Kingdom Park at Walt Disney World, I think of it as more of, you know, the refined what do you call it? I'm trying to think. Carpenter's work, you know. It's just like, you know, Disneyland is kind of
genuine.
Handmade. Yeah.
Yeah. It's someone exploring and not really knowing what they're making, you know. And Walt was the same way. I think Walt surrounded himself with people who viewed the making of art the same way he did, which was just like, you don't really know what you're doing, but you believe in what you're doing and you just kind of make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
But also, and as a result of that, he surrounded himself by rebels, so to say, as Rolly Crump and a lot of his artists.
Yeah.
That's it's beautiful how collaborative that environment was. And today it's like it's still collaborative, but it's like collaborative in a corporate sense. Like it's written down in some like employee handbook somewhere that one of the corporate values is like collaboration, which means that you must refer to your coworkers as collaborators. It's like very stilted.
Mm-hmm.
And every decision is market tested and has to go past safety measures, and it's a little too well made. It's not as messy as Disneyland.
Sam the Griff replied, "To me, it's like how people say they can taste a difference in handmade to machine-made bagels as an example. So it's not like they just said, all right, time for Space Mountain, just make another. They still tell a story," is what he says. Well, see, now I disagree with that because as a culinary school trained chef, I actually focused in baking and pastries, and you can totally tell a difference between handmade and machine-made bagel.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference is all in the recipe. Actually, people don't think about it this way, but if you're making bagels by hand, for instance, that means that you're making a small enough amount that it's still doable by one person. Whereas if you're making bagels by machine, it's most likely because you're making so many that you need a massive recipe. And those massive recipes are usually made with all kinds of chemicals and things like that to make it taste like a handmade bagel. So it still kind of proves my point, though, that that Magic Kingdom is still one of those places that one of those Disney parks that, actually I should say the first Disney park that really felt so well refined and so well manicured.
Mm-hmm.
Disneyland is still that place that is made by hand.
And as a Jew, I can tell you, I completely taste the difference between a handmade bagel and a machine-made bagel. Okay, so let's just put that to rest.
I feel like everybody would be able to taste the difference.
Yes, but there's a specific resonance, but I agree. I agree with that. In fact, I think the only kind of marvel that's at the same kind of ambitious, messy quality, handmade quality that Disneyland has is in Disney World is Epcot, because it's a new park doing a new thing that no other amusement park has done before. It's not a World's Fair, and yet it is a World's Fair. Mm-hmm. It's a theme park, but it's not a theme park. It doesn't know that I think is the quality. You have to make something and you don't really know what it is that you're making. Nowadays, it's like you have to know what you're making, and you have to do guest surveys and you have to pass through the shareholders, and then you get Galaxy's Edge, which I'm sure will be fine, like passable. It'll be enjoyable. It'll be entertaining. It'll be nice to look at, but it'll lack any sort of emotional, intimate, deeply personal resonance that somehow then relates to all of humanity, which I think is what Disneyland and Epcot in its first decade contains. It's an experience that leaves you understanding something personally within yourself fundamentally different about the human experience. I know that's so pretentious, but it's true. I think it's why kids develop like an emotional attachment to Disneyland when they're young, because they feel that impact, even though they're not by adult standards old enough to process important matters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Sam McGriff was saying, well, to sum up what he was basically saying is, do handmade bagels and do machine-made bagels really taste different because they're made with the same ingredients? Well, this goes back to our metaphor for Disneyland and Walt Disney World. There actually is a difference because, as I was just saying, machine-made bagels are made with totally different ingredients. Once again, chemicals and leaveners and inflationers. I made handmade bagels with only 5 ingredients at my cafe, but I worked at a company that made bagels that had 15 ingredients, and usually it was all chemicals. So, there is a big difference, and so Disneyland is like that. Disneyland is made with the bare minimum of ingredients to make something that is so great and so grand. But Walt Disney World is given the big budget, given the big numbers, and they can use all these ingredients to make the same thing, but ultimately it appears more pristine.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Shaden said a wonderful, like a student film versus a feature film is what Shaden said. I felt like that was a great way to put it.
Yes. Yeah, I think I see that point. But also a student film has a sort of striving to fulfill one's own taste, like one's artistic standard that they strive for for the rest of their life, but it's just showing glimmers of. I don't think student films feel chemical.
Okay.
Studio films feel chemical. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, it's like independent movies versus Hollywood blockbusters.
There you go.
A total difference.
Absolutely.
Well, let's see. I guess on the topic of the Magic Kingdom, what do you guys think the Magic Kingdom would have been like if Walt were still alive and he sort of saw that part of the project through? Do you think it would be sort of like the same, like you guys are saying, pristine, big budget, all that? Do you think it would be the same, or do you think it would sort of differ from that?
I think it would be the same because he didn't care about the Magic Kingdom. It was a compromise. He didn't want to make a Magic Kingdom. He cared about making his city on a hill. He cared about making utopia possible. When his attention diverted from the things he used to do, he'd be like, okay, I know that. Okay, I assembled this team that knows how to do that, so they're going to do that, and my attention's going to be focused on this new idea that I want to fulfill. So it might have been the same. There might have been some differences because obviously he cares a lot, and he would have gone back and go, yes, no, no, yes, no, yes, no, 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 yes. But he didn't care. He didn't want to do a Disneyland in Florida. He wanted to change the world in Florida. There's a difference there. Alex?
Uh-oh. Yeah, I basically I agree with Jeremy. He was gonna focus on Epcot and not on the actual theme park. That's not to say that he wouldn't have been watching over the theme park project. And when it comes to what he would have been looking over, which, just like Jeremy had said, he would have had people that were designing the park, and then he would have just given his approval on stuff that he liked. I think that nevertheless, the park in Florida would have been like Disneyland in the sense that it would have felt handmade because of the fact of how things at Imagineering worked. Back then, it was like there was a lot less Imagineers. The Imagineers were often, just studio architects and things like that. They didn't really do all that. I mean, I heard stories of when when Magic Kingdom was actually being constructed, under the watchful eye of Roy Disney, that at that time they had hired all these like big, well-educated guys, like actual architects and electricians and master engineers, and even for Epcot they hired scientists to design the rides. And so Bob Gurr was saying that one of the problems with the parks in Florida was the fact that they threw Walt's formula out the window and just went straight ahead to hiring these outside experts who never had any experience, drawing up or writing up, an animated feature film, something which the park in Disneyland itself was founded on, was, Disney's feature films and stuff like that. So, because Magic Kingdom Park had very few studio people actually designing it, and ever since then it's had almost no studio people designing it, it's always felt different. And so I think it would have been different anyway. I think that, what am I trying to say here? I think that if Walt were still alive to see Magic Kingdom through its completion, it would have felt like Disneyland, but a little different. But because that never happened, that's why it feels the way it does today.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Really well said, Alex. But I've been to the Magic Kingdom twice, and I always flip-flop on which park is my favorite, Disneyland or the Magic Kingdom, and it's always really hard for me to decide. Somehow I always end up back at Disneyland, but when I did go to the Magic Kingdom a couple years ago, it really did feel like a whole different experience. I'm sure people have said this before, but Walt Disney World is really, like as they call it, the vacation kingdom of the world. It feels really, what am I trying to say? I don't know. It's just some things are just really strange. The fact that there are so many buses to get to each different park. I feel like this is going off topic, but yeah, the Magic Kingdom. I do like the Magic Kingdom. I don't think it's.
I do too.
Yeah, I don't think any of us are really saying that it's a bad park. It's a really beautiful park. There are some things in the article though about what Raleigh says about the castle in the Magic Kingdom, but yeah, it does have a extremely different feel than Disneyland. If you guys haven't been to the Magic Kingdom, you guys will definitely find out what we're talking about. Like the first second you step under the train station, it'll feel completely different. But yeah, I felt like I just wanted to point out that I do enjoy the Magic Kingdom as a park.
Well, I feel like now we have to start talking about the virtues of the Magic Kingdom, because it's not a bad park. I agree with you. It's a very good park. And I think it was, when you look at Herb Ryman's concept paintings of the castle, it's really like he's trying to immerse you in a different world. That I think it works when you look at those paintings, and I think it works in the park too. I really am a firm believer in Tony Baxter's philosophy of the parks, and because of his philosophy, I always have felt that the parks are incomparable, because you have to look at them as the individual pieces of art that they are. And he says that Disneyland is the quaint park, Disney World is I'm probably paraphrasing at this point, but the grandiose, beautiful park. And Disneyland Paris. Oh no, he says Disneyland Paris is the beautiful park. I think Disney World is the grandiose. I forget what exact word he uses. Park. And when you make something new in each of those parks, you have to consider the aesthetic and the the theme of what each of those parks represents as a piece of art. And just going back what to you were talking about, Matt, is that Magic Kingdom, or Disney World being the vacation kingdom of the world, which is a total just marketing strategy to use that phrase. But I think that's true. I think when you go to Magic Kingdom, it feels more like a vacation destination as opposed to Disneyland, which feels like an art installation, like a permanent art installation. You know, there's a difference in that.
You know, I think one of the other things, I mean, okay, I like Magic Kingdom. You know, that might surprise a lot of people, but I like it to a certain extent. I mean, I love Disneyland more for many reasons. I mean, among the things, I love that Disneyland has more rides, more attractions, more to see, you know, than Magic Kingdom does. But what I do like about Walt Disney World is that Walt Disney World, you can stay in, you know, in, what am I trying to say here? It is this giant place that is master planned, and what's really cool about it is you marvel at its majesty, at how big it is, at how it operates. I mean, I remember when I was staying at the resort, I thought, I mean, they told us that my hotel, which was Coronado Springs Hotel, was as big as Disneyland itself. Really? Which I believed it, because there was a massive lake in the center and stuff like that, and so it was just a huge freaking hotel. And it's just amazing. That was just one of 27 hotels, soon to be 28, I think. And then there were 4 theme parks, 2 water parks, 8 golf courses. I was just like, what? You know, and so you marvel at it. And then the Walt Disney World monorail system going, you know, all the way around the Seven Seas Lagoon and then going all the way to Epcot. I mean, it just feels like you're at a completely different world, which is great. It's a great feeling. But one of the things I love about Disneyland Resort is how it isn't so master planned, how everything was added and squeezed into place. You know what I mean? Is Jeremy at a public restroom or something? Anyway, anyway, so what I like about Disneyland is it doesn't feel, you know, like so master planned. It feels like everything was kind of squeezed in and added wherever they could. And I like that. And I mean, I know some people don't. I've talked to people that are like, yeah, but I think that Disneyland seems too crowded with stuff. I feel like Disneyland is too small, you know, that kind of thing. But that's totally different. Some people, you know, hang 50 million pictures on their wall, whereas normal people like me hang just a few. So that was a joke. Anyway, so that's how I think of the two results.
Yeah, really well said, Alex. I agree with what you said. It really does feel like you've entered a completely different, like you said, a completely different world from the moment you step on the property. Like you said, you see the monorail pass by. It really is literally like its own city, which I love Disney World for. But yeah, I don't think. Well, I was gonna say I don't think anything can beat the traffic to get into the parking structure at Disneyland, but that's not true.
Yeah, just drive on the 405 in Los Angeles and you'll know the difference. But yeah, you know, actually what fascinates me is the difference between, because you know now when we say Walt Disney World, we mean all of the 4 parks of Disney, the 4 theme parks and all the different restaurants and all the different hotels and all the different shopping opportunities. as a vacation destination. But actually, up through the kind of the golden years of Epcot, Disney World was always viewed as it being Epcot.
Mm-hmm.
When you watch like the opening day special, when the opening day Epcot special, when Epcot opened with like Danny Kaye hosting that thing, and there was like a musical. It's very weird, but great. I love it. He does this bit because he's very funny, and he does this bit where he talks about how Walt Disney World is Epcot, but Epcot is in Disney World, and da 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 da. So and in many promotional videos before Epcot opened, they really focused on how like Epcot Center is the second phase of Epcot, which is Walt Disney World. So they really viewed Walt Disney World as being Walt's vision of Epcot, or a tribute to that vision of Epcot, until probably the late 80s, where they realized, well, it isn't that anymore. So that's always fascinated me, how the philosophical look at Disney World has shifted.
Yeah, because you see I think there's some like brochures out from probably before the Magic Kingdom even opened. There's like brochures talking about how the Magic Kingdom is sort of like the Magic Kingdom, and all the hotels are sort of like the phase 1 for Disney World, and then later down the line they'll get to building like like the city Epcot, which I thought was really interesting, because you'd think that after Walt passed, you'd think they wouldn't actually plan to go through with that city, but up until, I guess, supposedly up until like a certain point, they did plan on going through with building Epcot, the city, which I feel like that's kind of cool that they actually thought that they were gonna do it, but then I guess, I don't know what happened. I'm sure they realized that they didn't really want to build a city.
It's one of those projects that needed Walt's vision that no one else had. It needed his guidance, just like Snow White needed his guidance, just like Disneyland needed his guidance, just like cartoon shorts needed his guidance. You need the mastermind,
Yeah. Let's see, sort of getting back onto the article about Rolly Crump, but we've sort of gone way off the deep end, but that's okay. Really great discussions. But let's see, what was I gonna read? Well, Rolly Crump does talk about how Club 33, he calls it pretentious and stupid. Pretentious and stupid are among the printable words, so it's implied that he's said worse things about current Club 33, but there is a quote that I want to read. "No one is trying to keep the charm in the park, and I've had enough of it," Crump says of the Disneyland of 2018. "This has been my whole life," he says, and then that follows with "fall in love with Disneyland, and Disneyland will break your heart." So a lot of quotes like that, which like I said, I really didn't feel like those words would come out of any like Imagineer's mouth, but yeah. So those quotes. Let's see. "Ask him if he misses visiting Disneyland regularly, and he answers empathetically, no." Lots of no's in this sentence. "No, no, 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 not anymore." Then he pauses and says simply, "The park is gone," and then he dismisses it as a stroller park. So, again, really sort of deep-cutting words. Rolly Crump is throwing shade at Disneyland 2018, I guess is what would be the title of this podcast, probably. But
and what's funny is, that was one of the quotes that I wanted to mention, because while he is my favorite Imagineer, I don't really agree with him on the fact that the park is necessarily gone necessarily. You know, like what am I trying to say? It's true that a lot of the things that we just mentioned, you know, Imagineering no longer does. You know, now it's just about, you know, about bringing people into the movies that they see and making stuff more exciting and more, you know, more colorful and, you know, stuff that pops. And so in those senses, I agree with him, but I don't feel that Disneyland is so far gone from what it used to be. I mean, I think that things like the Indiana Jones Adventure or Star Tours were really great additions to the park. I don't see them as detracting from the way Disneyland was. And other things that have, you know, that have shown up at Disneyland since then, you know, be it Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters or whatever. Well, now that I think about it, there really isn't that much that Disneyland has added since Rolly Crump's time. Now that I think about it. But I mean, like, a lot of the rides I really, you know, the only one that I would say that doesn't really follow much is like Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters, you know, and Toontown doesn't really feel all that charming or you know, really lacks the Disney quality, I think. But other than that, I feel like Disneyland isn't so bad. Except now I think that Star Wars Galaxy's Edge will probably, you know, probably change my mind on that by making me think things worse about Disneyland. I mean, everybody knows I don't really like the idea of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge being in Disneyland. I don't feel it belongs there, and so that's one of the things that I agree with Rolly Crump on. But other than that, I don't think the park is so far gone as he does.
Yeah, that's true. Like you said, Indiana Jones Adventure is a really great addition. Like you said, Star Tours as well. But yeah, there isn't really a lot in terms of like big scale Indiana Jones Star Tours level of like attractions that have come to Disneyland besides, you know, like you said, Galaxy's Edge, which is kind of interesting to think about. I'm trying to think what the last attraction to be added to Disneyland was. I can't quite put my finger on it. If any of you guys in chat,
It actually might be Buzz Lightyear.
really?
I could be. I mean, I'm not like thinking deeply about it, but it actually might be.
Oh, you're
In that
asking
case-
which was the last ride to be added at Disneyland?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, technically it would be Buzz Lightyear, but I mean, if you want to count Star Tours: The Adventures Continue, which
I don't.
Yeah,
reopened in 2011. I'm just throwing that.
But just the thing with Indiana Jones and Star Tours, and I think they are great additions to the park, were great additions to the park, is that they were principally designed by Tony Baxter, who I think is a genius.
Yeah.
I think he like totally not just like objectively and intellectually understood Walt's philosophy, but like functioned at the same level as Walt. And if he was alive, I mean, he was, but if he was
I thought you were
Excuse me.
saying if Tony Baxter was alive. I thought I missed his
Yeah.
death or something.
I was
God.
like, what, did he die?
Isn't this the tribute video to the life? No. He if Tony Baxter was an Imagineer at the time of Walt, which he missed it just by a little bit, I mean, he would be one of those prized artists as like Mark Davis was in Walt's eyes, because he just like Mark Davis, who I know Mark Davis had some falling out with Tony Baxter, but he would have seen eye to eye with Walt, and they would have really gotten along because I think they had the same innate philosophical view of the park. which is why every Tony Baxter attraction that wasn't riddled with like budget cuts and financial trouble, like the Rocket Rods,
Mm.
um, just work. I mean, Indiana Jones works. It's like it's weird. Like you wouldn't expect it to work, but it works. It feels like it's always been there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The Fantasyland redesign in the 80s feels like it's always been there since the start. Tony Baxter understands Disneyland in a way that I think only Walt did.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, and his career, the latter half of his career was literally saving Disneyland by any means possible.
Yeah, it was.
Because he understood the fundamental nature of the park. I think in his mind at a certain point, it was more of a priority to have the submarines floating by next to Tomorrowland and Fantasyland than it was, whether it was themed Finding Nemo or Atlantis or whatever it was going to be. He just cared about the look and the feel of that image, and so he saved it. He saved it by any needs necessary. Same with the Swiss Family Robinson Treehouse. It just like works in Adventureland, and the only way it was going to be saved is if it was tied to Tarzan, and he saved it. He just understood what the parks were about at the same mystic level that Walt did. And I don't think there's any other Imagineer like him, really. I mean, even the greats, Rolly Crump, like we're talking about, Mark Davis, Mary Blair, all of them. There's really no one like Tony Baxter, because he is Walt, really, in my opinion.
What's sad is that since Tony Baxter is no longer with Imagineering, there's really no one that is protecting Disneyland anymore. There's really no one that's keeping Disneyland the way it should be. And so even then, I think Tony Baxter was the last Imagineer that you could say, oh, this is this Imagineer's ride. Just like Rolly Crump said, that Small World is Mary Blair's ride. You could say that Big Thunder was, Tony Baxter's ride. And he was the last Imagineer that you can really say that, because now, it's no longer, it's one ride is no longer one Imagineer's idea. It's now the culmination of like 5 different Imagineers that come together and say, how about this ride? So, when it comes to like, what's that one? Flight of Passage. There was no one Imagineer that came up with Flight of Passage. Okay, it was a group of Imagineers that were told to work on something Avatar themed.
Well, I guess you could say, what's the name of that one? Joe Rohde sort of, I guess sort of headed that whole thing. But
I'm really curious about him, because he's cut from the same cloth as Tony Baxter. They worked on, I think they worked on Maelstrom together, which, a lot of people have mixed opinions about Maelstrom being a good ride or not. Certainly one when I grew up I loved that ride. But and Animal Kingdom is really a masterwork.
Yeah.
It's a masterpiece at the same level of Epcot Center. It's just a brilliant statement of humanity. He's a great designer. He's a brilliant artist. He knows everything about art history. I don't know. I'd love to hear his justification for being the lead designer on something like Mission Breakout.
Yeah.
Which he, I'd love to because I view that attraction as just being kind of blech. It's fun, but it's blech, you know? I don't know what has made him why he's stayed. Well, people like Tony Baxter and Tim Delaney and all of that, the second generation, were either forced to retire or just like gave up at a certain point. And I think Tony Baxter gave up at a certain point. He'll never say it publicly, but I think at a certain point he was like, for the past 20 years, I've been saving Disneyland. I don't want to have to save Disneyland anymore. I want to, create and do what I do. I don't have to fight for Disneyland. And I think that's why he left. Because I think at that point, he probably saw the early plans for the future of the company and was like, I'm out. I'm out. That's just not the company that I chose to work for.
Well, the question I had, why did Tony Baxter leave? Because I don't think I've ever read up on anything about that.
I actually have his resignation letter.
Really?
It's a beautiful letter.
Really?
But it's very, he's not like Rolly Crump yet. He's not as vocal. But it's a beautiful letter. Yeah.
Oh, wow, this is really long. I was going to read it, but let's see. I'm really interested because I don't know. I kind of want to read this whole thing.
Well, you should. You should.
Should I?
Wait, what are you looking at?
Tony Baxter's letter of resignation.
Oh, he must have Googled that while we were talking.
Well, yeah. It's been published. It's been published online. Because it's good. It's good.
Sam asks if Alex can summarize it. Do you mind summarizing it, or would you guys rather have me read the entire thing? Because I could read the entire thing. It's not too long.
Or I could read it.
Or Alex could read it.
Or I could read it.
Or Jeremy could read it. How about we all take turns reading it?
But let's take a vote.
One thing's for sure, I won't mispronounce things. So.
Oh my gosh. Deep burns. Is Alex the new Rolly Crump? Taking cuts at Matterhorn, man.
Yes, he is. Alex and I are like Rolly Crump and Bob Gurr.
Wait, which one's who?
I don't know.
So in chat, vote. Would you rather have me read it, Jeremy read it, Alex read it, or have Alex summarize it? People are saying popcorn reading. I have not heard the term popcorn reading since elementary school.
Elementary school.
Yeah.
I don't know. Pop reading it could be Jeremy's Bob. Pop reading it could be fun.
How about we all take turns? I feel like that would be the best. I can link you guys the article if you want.
Yeah, do that.
Okay, so it's linked in our group thing. Okay, we'll all take turns reading it because I'm very interested to read to see what this is. I don't think I've ever. This post was from April of 2001 on Mousepad. Tony Baxter's letter of resignation. Okay, I'll start. An open letter to fellow Imagineers. Decades ago, Imagineering had the bold notion to start the 21st century 18 years early by unveiling the future at Epcot in 1982. The positive look at tomorrow had a numbing effect on the bleak vistas depicted in George Orwell's dystopian novel, 1984. As a kid beginning my career at Disneyland in the mid-1960s, both of these futures were far off from a universe where Disneyland was the only Disney park. Mr. Lincoln was a state of the art attraction, and everything operated under Walt Disney's guidance. Today, while there is a new set of futures to explore, the time has come for me to evolve my role at Walt Disney Imagineering. Beginning this February, I will begin transitioning to a position as a part-time advisor. While I will not be here on a regular basis, I will continue to be available to any and all of you as needs arise. Though my time will be limited, my passion for the magic Walt Disney Imagineering creates will be just as strong. Since early last year, I had been thinking about what I would say to all of you when this time arrived. It has been a wondrous 47 years, spanning the opening of Walt Disney World, Big Thunder and Star Tours, from Epcot's original Journey to Imagination and to Disneyland Paris and Indiana Jones. The Imagineers I have known and shared these times with have provided invaluable experiences not to be found anywhere else on Earth. Let's see, Alex can take it up from here.
As one of the lucky second-generation Imagineers, I had the unique opportunity to experience firsthand the core philosophies of our company. I was fortunate enough to work with Claude Coates, Mark Davis, John Hench, and many others who built the industry alongside Walt Disney. I was able to soak up their wisdom and partner with them on creative projects. I have passed forward many of their key philosophies, and as our culture and scope have evolved, I have tried to balance my support of these foundations with the business of charting what's next. Now the 21st century brings a new reality. For the first time, the younger generation is master of the key technologies driving the future, while upcoming generations deal with the tech tools that are evolving almost daily. Many of Disney's keystone philosophies remain stable and relevant. These philosophies help define our creative edge to a world that is eager for aspirational content. With no particular order, here are 5 that continue to inspire me, and I think you may find useful in shaping creative futures for the years to come. Creating lasting experiences. The legendary Imagineer Mark Davis once said, "We don't really have a story with a beginning, an end, or a plot. It's more a series of experiences, a build-up to a climax. Guests still want to be astonished, and our best attractions deliver that wow factor with visions and emotion. I always start with the notion that it is the 20th repeat ride, not the first, that is the most important. Park experiences are by nature less able to focus on linear stories and tangible feelings than motion pictures. Unlike a movie, what separates an okay attraction from a great one is that people find themselves in the great ones. They have been taken to a place that they couldn't have imagined without Disney. How intriguingly we craft the level of guest engagement has direct bearing on desire for an upteenth ride down the same track." Jeremy, if he'll continue.
In Fantasyland, a simple line of dialogue heralds the beginning of one of the most aspirational ride experiences ever created. Come on, everybody, here we go! After writing Peter Pan, futurist Ray Bradbury was moved to write, "Walt, I'll be eternally grateful that you made it possible for me to sail from a child's window out over moonlit London in a galleon on its way to the stars." Despite the fact that by today's standard, Peter Pan's technology is dated, its mystique has remained unwavering. The Walt Disney Imagineering Challenge is finding ways to ensure today's more sophisticated experiences have similar intangible qualities that provide groundwork for lasting appeal. Sincerity, one of Walt Disney's ways of overcoming what sophisticates tended to see as corny or sentimental, was his absolute belief in sincerity. Defending Disney's signature animation style in the movie Cinderella, Walt expressed what is, to me, a true hallmark of the Disney difference. You have to believe in the honesty of Cinderella's world, or you will not believe in the magic as it unfolds around her either. The power of sincerity to win over an audience is front and center in the new Cars Land. Here, a truly believable environment fuses with the fantastic to give rise to new reality. Valuable mental real estate. A while back, there was talk about the elusive Disney difference. What the difference is may be open to various interpretations, but I see it centered on cultivating valuable mental real estate. Since the early days at the studio, Disney has excelled in focusing diverse talents on plussing core ideas. Enhanced value stems from something as simple as the emotional appeal of Epcot's Figment character in comparison to hundreds of other generic dragons. When the whole team undertakes a mission to make our dragon stand out in every way, mental real estate values go up. Matt, continue.
At Imagineering, where we must deal with equal parts of controlled insanity and disciplined evaluation, this can be complicated. Years ago, who else could come up with the crazy idea for flying saucers and then make the concept work? Sort of. Piloting flying saucers is every kid's dream, and in spite of the ride's technical shortcomings, people will forever recall the flying saucers as an e-ticket. The ride's aspirational, bucket list, once-in-a-lifetime intrigue more than make up for any less than stellar performance. Disney Hallmark values. Current culture and the structure of our company are vastly different from the time when I began my career. Yet within that dynamic, Hallmark values continue to add major appeal to today's more socially. I don't know why I had trouble with that one. Socially sensitive content. That's only one mispronounced one though, so.
It's okay. It's okay.
Disney's feature Beauty and the Beast shared many hallmarks with its ancestor Snow White, but it spoke to a vastly different audience with a finer tuned voice. Likely the more recent Tangled fuses traditional Disney values with relevancy aimed at a new generation. Beyond the Walt Disney Imagineering walls, Pixar and Marvel achieve a consistency of success in their fast-paced arenas. Each Pixar term is confident enough in their individual productions to freely reach out and tap into links that ensure Pixar's hallmark differentiators are part of every project. Marvel has taken a different route, tasking individual creative teams to bridge their storylines under an overarching and epic saga. Regardless of the diversity and deliverables, Hallmark values are key to all Disney entities, and everyone needs to be alert to where they reside and how and why to fuse them to the DNA of a project. Alex?
Mentoring. At both ends of a career, one of the most important work relationships is achieved through mentoring. When you are in your 20s and 30s, it's critical to find a mentor you can admire and trust. What proved most valuable for me was a mentoring partnership that skipped a full generation. A wide age gap creates a cross-generational opportunity for two-way learning. A young mentee sees a mentor's still bright light as support for his or her own growing visibility, and the gap vanquishes the sense of competition. In a complementary way, a mentor's satisfaction is fueled by the growing knowledge and skills transferred to their younger partner. My mentor was Imagineering legend Claude Coates, nearly 4 decades my senior. For Pixar director Pete Docter, his mentors were animation giants Joe Grant and Ollie Johnson. Pete and I absorbed as much knowledge as we possibly could during a period of growth in our careers. I would like to think our esteemed mentors also drew inspiration from our curiosity and unexplored visions. A mentorship is not a few hours of counseling every so often. It is pulling together on real projects with business, creative goals, and knowledge gains to be made by both sides. This is the partnership that I had with Claude Coates, and we remained lifetime friends because of our shared working time together. Going forward, no company is perfect, and like any other corporation, Disney has its own politics and challenges. We are artists, engineers, managers, filmmakers, and musicians, but our company is unique. There is no place like it on Earth. We are lucky. At the end of the day, it is my hope that this letter will add to the special culture that I have been privileged to grow in. I see the probability for that happening in my interactions with the younger Imagineers like Mitchell, Josh, Zach, Dylan, Laura, Manuel, Vanessa, and Brandon, which are beyond rewarding to me. At a time when unlearning is as critical as learning, it's important to listen to the way these people think and enjoy the things they do. Creativity I have mined from their game-changing perspectives now effectively influences my own design process. I hope that when their careers peak some decades from now, they will look back on our time together as I value the time I was able to spend with Claude Coates. Jeremy?
And now it comes down to the point at hand. I am not suggesting that I could be a mentor to you all, but that said, you should all have someone you can turn to in this manner. I do hope to be available to help support your ideas, give advice, or even join a team whenever appropriate. My role will be one of supporting your visions in the best way I can and encouraging you to maintain and build upon this already special place. I will have availability, and if you would like my assistance in any way, please email Bruce Vaughn's office to request my time. This is not a goodbye, but hopefully a letter of introduction to the many of you that I have not yet had the chance to meet personally. Tony Baxter, February 1st, 2013.
Holy cow, that was a roller coaster. Okay, well.
So to sum up what he was saying, he's happy to have met everybody, but he's leaving.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. Okay. That was really... I'd never read that before. That was really interesting. There's a comment down below, though. The following is an official communication from Walt Disney Imagineering regarding Tony Baxter's resignation. Okay, so this is from Bruce Vaughn. We'd like to share that, as of today, Tony Baxter is leaving his role as a creative development executive to become a part-time advisor to Imagineering. Tony began his 47-year Disney career as an ice cream scooper on Main Street, USA, at Disneyland while in college. After joining Walt Disney Imagineering in 1970, he was heavily involved in the concepts of some of our most iconic attractions, such as Big Thunder, Star Tours, Splash Mountain, and Indiana Jones. He also oversaw the creative aspects of the original New Fantasyland at Disneyland, and was the creative lead for our second international park, Disneyland Paris. In addition to his extensive portfolio work, Tony has long been an enthusiastic mentor to new Imagineers and will continue this mission in his new role. Like so many Imagineering greats before him, his creativity, passion, and knowledge will have a remarkable impact on the next generation of WDI dreamers and doers. We thank Tony. Okay, that's pretty much it. Okay, so... Wow, okay, that was... Okay, Bryce says that was something. I agree. That was certainly something. Thoughts on his resignation letter? I don't know what to say after all that.
I think he just felt that Imagineering was becoming too corporate, too... well, yeah, that's all there is to say. It just became too corporate. It was no longer this place of free thought and free imagination. It's now this place of get your goals done, make sure your quota is being met and things like that. And so it was no longer this fun and exciting place. It was just this place of business where business is done. I met Tony Baxter once and I asked him a single question, just one question, and his answer was, "Fine, how about you?"
Wow, okay.
No, I really did meet him, and all I asked him was, "Hi, Tony, how are you doing?"
I would love to have Tony. I'm sure it's not possible, but I would love to have him on the podcast sometime.
Well, wait a minute. It's possible. It's totally possible. But time, patience will grow. We'll grow, and we'll get him on the show. Believe me. I love that letter. I mean, it's filled with so much grace and humility. It reminds me of, Obama's farewell, speech. When he left office, it was just, he didn't focus on the negative. He focused on, not even like the positive. He just focused on the values. And I so admire that. because, and I love how he acknowledged that Pixar and Marvel now have their place in Disney simply because you can't ignore that they do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but and personally, I don't think they're being used in the right way in the parks. But I don't. It's just filled with so much of the values of what Disney is as an artistic organization. It's beautiful. It's not a shaming. It's not. It's not a an exaltation of his career and what Disney was. It's simply just, this is what I believe Disney is. And from the people that I've seen growing in the company, this is what I believe Disney can be. And it's so beautiful. It's so hopeful.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I just hope that Disney can find itself again.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Yes. Well said. Well, I guess to sort of wrap things up, do you guys think there will ever be another Imagineer like Rolly Crump or Bob Gurr or even like Tony Baxter in Imagineering?
I honestly don't think so. Which is a really unfortunate thing to think about, because while we all wish that Imagineering was still this place where where one creative person could design a whole ride and that ride is completely influenced by them, it's no longer like that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now it's like, there's so many people working for Imagineering. I mean, I think they have like several thousand employees at Imagineering. I met an Imagineer once, and her job, I asked her, I said, what's her job? I thought she was going to say something really interesting. She said, oh, I just make sure that what's being built is what's actually being built. And I'm like, what? I said, what do you do? She goes, I go out to the construction site and I have a checklist and I make sure everything on that checklist is done. And if it's not done, I go to my manager. And I'm like, wow, you're an Imagineer. Like that's what you do. So it's really sad. Like it's as the company grows bigger and bigger, there's less and less of a place for a single Imagineer to do a single job.
Yeah. Do you think it's weird that you'd need a single person just to do that one job? I mean, you'd think, I don't know. I'm sure you guys know what I mean, but I guess as we wrap up this topic, any closing thoughts on the article? Anything we talked about? Jeremy?
I mean, I agree. I think okay. I mean, the specifics of your question was, will there be an Imagineer in Disney like a Rolly Crump or a Tony Baxter? No, not in Disney. But I think that there will be artists like them in the world that are inspired by them specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have hope. It's like what I said the last time I was on. It's kind of like you have to, at this point, find your Disneylands elsewhere, not in a negative way, just in a way that, what did Disneyland do that other things, are doing like it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think an artist like a Rolly Crump or a Mary Blair or a Mark Davis or a John Hench or a Tony Baxter will gravitate to those places. So I do think there is a Tony Baxter in the future. He or she won't necessarily be working for Disney.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, you said you'll find your Disneyland elsewhere. What is your I guess, your quote Disneyland that you found elsewhere?
I don't know. I'm still discovering it. I'm starting to find the things that give me the same emotional stimulus. Certain museums, I think, are taking an influence from what Disneyland perfected. When I went to Washington D.C. on a whim, like 6 months ago, and just being in that city, walking down the mall from the Capitol to Lincoln Memorial, it was like walking down Main Street. It had the same feeling that there's some kind of aesthetic and thematic statement being made, and after that trip I was like, Washington DC is the capital because it's an artistic statement of what the country is. And I think Disneyland does that in a similar way. And so you have to look to the world and look to yourself to find where in the arts is this experimental thing that Walt was trying at but died, and it was just riddled with corporate politics to progress. I really look to, it's not over. It's not done. It's not dead. It's out there, and we can, if you can dream it, you can do it.
Okay, bringing it full circle. Let's see. Well, Alex, I asked Jeremy the same question, but I guess since he brought it up, do you have a Disneyland, like Jeremy said, a different kind of Disneyland that you're passionate about?
You mean like another place that I like to be that I'm really passionate about?
Sure, something like that. I don't really know like what Jeremy actually meant, but
I can't articulate specifically what I meant, but I think you know what I mean, Alex. I think, a place of wonder, a place of inspiration, a place of the country, truly of the country, not what it seems to be today, not what people claim for it to be today.
Well, now that you put it that way, after much consideration, I'd have to say no. I'm just kidding. Yes, actually, believe it or not, besides Disneyland, another place of passion for me is San Francisco. I love the history.
I so agree.
I love the history of San Francisco. I love the architecture. I love the people. For me, it's like another Disneyland, but in real life. And, it's like, it's this wonderful place of beauty, of art, of enchantment. It's a great place. And I love to learn everything about San Francisco. And besides a Disneyland historian, I'm also kind of a San Francisco historian.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But, I think that's so, it's so, that's
be nice.
What makes Disneyland so special is, and I said this in the Small World episode, it's of the world. It's of who we are, our identity as a species, that no other physical place, physical theme park, embodies and embraces and hugs and kisses, as Rolly Crump says. Disneyland, it hugs and kisses you. It hugs and kisses humanity. It says we can be better.
Yeah.
We can be our ideal self. I mean, whoa. So yeah, I mean, like you can't find a Six Flags other than Six Flags, but you can find the fact that you can find a Disneyland philosophically in San Francisco or Washington D.C. or New York City or Paris, France, or anywhere, a place, a physical destination, in its design, in its look, in its aesthetic, in its feeling, in its emotional resonance.
Mhm.
Like
You know,
Disneyland.
Yeah.
You know, there's no other place on earth like Disneyland
Mhm.
because of that.
Mhm. You know what's amazing to me about Disneyland is the kinds of people it draws to it as fans. The kinds of people that are fans of the park are people who are all in some way relatively the same, um, in the sense that they're all looking for that getaway, for that place that makes them feel happy. And so it's amazing. I've met more amazing people in this world through Disneyland than I've met outside Disneyland. It's just a hub of really great people, and the park draws those people to it.
100%. 100% agreed. Well said, everybody. I guess that sort of wraps up this topic that we have. Unless you guys have any, well, I guess we already said our closing thoughts.
No, we said our. Please, we could continue, but I don't think. That's
I would
why.
like to read an essay.
I do have Shakespeare pulled up on a new tab in Google Chrome if you guys would like us to read that. Just type in chat.
Are you serious?
No, I'm just kidding. There was a YouTube video that I watched
so.
a couple days ago of all of Beethoven's songs in like one overlaid onto one video, and it was like a 2-hour long video. I don't know. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about. If you guys ever wanted to hear Beethoven's symphonies overlaid on top of each other,
Beethoven is like Walt.
Yeah, and I listened to the first maybe like 5 minutes. It didn't sound as chaotic as you'd think. It was actually kind of beautiful, even though like all these different musical pieces were overlaid on top of each other. It was really, I don't have the link, sadly. You guys will have to look it up. But yeah, it was a really beautiful video from the 5 minutes I saw. But anyways, moving on to, let's see, let's get to some spooky stories. There's been enough petition in the Discord, in the chat, in the comments to name this segment. What was it called? Late Night Tinkles is what we're gonna. I guess
yeah.
I guess that's what we're gonna end up calling this segment.
That started in the previous podcast that I was on, so maybe I'm a good luck charm.
Yes. All right, so it is now time for. Turn my light off. Late Night Tinkles. We have a story from, I believe, from Shaden, who sent one on me from the Discord. And if you guys have your own spooky stories that you'd like to send into the podcast, you can email them to me, ytmatterhornmatt@gmail.com, if you guys would like to send in your spooky stories. Or you can send them on Discord, on Twitter.
Which stands for YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Stands for YouTube. Thank you, Alex.
You're welcome.
But this story comes from, I believe this is from Shaden. Well, I guess let's get right into it. So I guess this is like a preface. Now, in hindsight, I'm 99% sure I just dreamt this up, but it was creepy nonetheless. So here it is. Sam asks if I have MySpace. I do. MySpace.com/MatterhornMatt if you guys would like to communicate with me on there. Just kidding. I don't have a MySpace. But let's get into this story. When I was just entering, that creaking noise really sort of adds to the ambiance of the spooky stories. All right. When I was just entering the 9th grade, my mom and I were living in this little apartment. It was kind of weird because it wasn't always an apartment. I believe it was an old office. There was this weird door in my room leading directly outside, so I always kept it locked and deadbolted. The wind always was blowing outside, so it sounded creepy whenever a gust of wind blew by. One night I was sleeping when I heard it. I wasn't fully asleep, so I went to grab my earplugs when I see the door jiggle. I figure it wasn't that bad, and went back to bed with the earplugs in. Eventually, I see it move again. At this point, I'm a little freaked out, so I waited. Then I noticed the doorknob moved a bit and began to wiggle. At this point, my chest is sinking from being so creeped out. I listen outside and don't hear anything organic moving out there. I begin to push on the door to keep whatever it was out. Eventually, the doorknob turns. I begin to crouch behind the door, hoping whatever it was doesn't see me as it enters. It opens the door. Oh my god. It opens the door. I get on the floor. Everybody walk the dinosaur. Thank you for that.
What?
Thank you for that.
What just happened?
It's been a long time since I've heard that song. Thank you for that, Shaden. Oh my gosh, I got jebaited, you guys. Sam?
What?
I got jebaited, you guys. Okay. I got beamed. Oh my gosh. I'm pretty sure that's a song. Everybody walk the dinosaur. Okay, well that's enough spooky stories for today. I'm gonna have to read through these next time so I don't get jebaited again next time.
You
on
have to
stream.
vet them.
Yeah. So Shaden, that's negative 1 point for you. Just throwing that out there.
You totally ruined the podcast.
Oh my gosh. All right, moving on to our final segment, Words with Walt. All right. This week's quote comes from Mr. Alex, the historian. When you believe in a thing, believe in it all the way. Implicitly, I spelled that wrong. Implicitly and unquestionably. That is our quote from for this week. By, of course, Mr. Walt Disney. I, of course, spelled a word wrong. Nothing new here. But
It's like being on a podcast with an elementary school.
Oh.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't want to say it, but now that you did, Alex, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Oh my goodness. Well, I agree. I agree with you, Alex. Thank you for pointing that out. Oh my gosh. I can't believe I fell for that. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, okay, before we get into this, Bryce just sent me
Hey.
a tribute for Jurassic Park. Goodbye to Jurassic Park. You may be gone, but you're forever in my heart. Thank you. Thank you for that. Moving on to
You're falling for everything.
yeah.
today.
Oh my gosh. All right. Moving on to Words with Walt. We're gonna forget any of that ever happened. I'm sure Sam will take a clip of all that and put it on YouTube for all of us to laugh about. Oh my goodness. Okay. This has just been a derailed podcast. So thank you to everyone for who's sticking around, all 11 people.
No, there's some great things in this podcast.
Oh my
Just have
gosh.
to look past the,
Look past all the memes and all the
Exactly.
yeah. Okay, so the quote, I already read it. Alex, since you picked the quote, what are your thoughts on the quote?
Thank you for that segue, Matt. Well, I really love this quote because of the fact that it really talks about how Walt Disney, says to stick with something. When you have this idea or you have something that you want to do or some kind of aspiration of some sort, believe in it, but, stick with it, don't just give up on it. And also make sure that, that whatever it is, this dream or this aspiration of yours or this idea, make sure that that you unquestionably, undeniably believe in it. And so it's quite self-explanatory, really. But anyway, it's a great quote because it teaches you to really believe in yourself and really to go with your gut. And so I think it's just a really amazing.
Okay, well said, Alex. Jeremy, what about you?
It's hard actually because you can believe in horrible things all the way and cause a lot of harm to people. But people like Walt and the people who worked for him believed this in the, I don't want to say naive, but in the most, I don't want to say ignorant, but in the most idealistic sense, that I think the missing word is when you believe in a thing, when you believe in a thing that's good, that betters humanity, then believe in it all the way. Because when you believe in it all the way, you will change humanity for the better. And I think that's what Walt was working toward. And I only wished he lived another 20 years. Because think about what he could do in just like 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
You have Mickey Mouse, then you have Snow White, then you have, Fantasia and another 3, and then you have this weird place that's a park, but it, but it's Disneyland, and then you have a city that he wanted to build. I believe in the noble qualities of this quote, that when you believe in something good, which I think is what he meant, then really stick to it and don't listen to the cynics who tell you it's going to lose money, because Disneyland was a failure its first year or so. Fantasia lost money until Michael Eisner decided to re-release it on VHS. Then all of a sudden everybody loved it. And now it's a staple of Disney. The great things last. That's what that means to me.
Absolutely. And I guess it's time to give my thoughts on this. So my thoughts on this amazing quote by Mr. Walt Disney is...
Wow.
Oh my god.
I had to do it.
Was that an accident?
No, I had to do it to him.
No.
I had to do it to him. Okay.
Sadly.
Now we can move on from that.
That was the opposite of what I just expressed about the quote.
I hate this podcast.
Yeah, it's like life. It's like there's a lot of great things in this podcast, and there's a lot of things I can't say, about this podcast.
Well, I don't really have much to add to what you guys said, so we'll end on that wonderful note. Yeah, thank you all for showing up to this amazing, wonderful episode. We almost made it to 2 hours. We're 2 minutes off. I wonder if we can stretch it the time enough to get to 2 hours.
Yeah, sure. Just ask us what we think about Disneyland, and we'll go for another hour.
Oh, okay.
Don't do that. Don't.
So, how's your guys' day been so far?
I got kind of a scary story.
Really?
I told it to Matt already. But anyway, it's not really a story so much as an experience. But for those of you that know that my house is something weird happened the other night. I decided to, my dog had to use the potty, so I had to take the dog out. And I knew I was only going a couple yards away from the house. And there was nobody home. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'll just leave the door open. So, unlocked, I mean. So I closed the door, but I left it completely unlocked. And when I came back after taking my dog potty, I tried to open the door and it was locked.
Mm.
Both locks were locked. The deadbolt and the knob was locked. So it was really creepy. I opened the door and I went in the house and I checked the house and there was still nobody home. So it just locked in the 2 minutes that I was gone. Walk behind me. Thank you.
Is this part of the story?
Is this thing on?
Oh, is that it?
I ended the story.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to continue going. Well, thank you. Thank you, Alex, for that wonderful late night tinkle.
This has been a complete train wreck. I want to go home.
That sucks, because we just expressed our we just cut our wrists and bled our feelings about Disney, and now, but it's also subsequented by a lot of what.
A lot of late night tinkles.
A lot of late night tinkles. A lot. More so than I want to admit.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of which, I really have to go Tinkles right now, so move this thing along.
Okay.
It's been 2 hours. I can't hold it any longer.
Well, thank you to everybody who showed up for this wonderful, wonderful episode. If you skipped the beginning and just skipped to the very end, this was indeed a wonderful episode. Definitely go back. Watch the entire thing. Watch the entire thing multiple times if you want.
Yeah, watch the entire thing.
All 2 hours of this amazing episode. This is truly a milestone, a first for the Matterhorn Mondays podcast.
Good or bad?
Yeah,
I don't know.
good or bad.
Time will tell.
Now it's a podcast. Jeremy's getting with the jokes. All right. Okay, but anyways, thank you all so much for showing up, for watching this episode. My voice cracked. That was the worst one so far. That was indeed the worst. I'm just gonna get the outro out as fast as I can. We all want to know your thoughts on what we talked about, whether it be the article from Rolly Crump or whether it be the stuff that we talked about or the other stuff that we talked about. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all next week on Matterhorn Mondays. Thank you all for watching. Have a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.